Man, Robert Redford's no longer here. That sucks, because Robert Redford's been in my life ever since I was born. I remember my parents talking about his movies, and then I started watching his movies, and he had Sundance. And then later on, me being a comic book movie junkie, he was in Captain America Winter Soldier. It's like, and plus he loved the environment. Like he was a good dude, and he'll be missed. But I started thinking, like, if I knew somebody and didn't know any of his films, or maybe they saw one, what films would I suggest? So there's other films that's out there. Ordinary People he directed, Brubaker. He's made a ton. Electric Horseman, his second film with Jane Fonda. Barefoot in the Park, the first film he did with Jane Fonda. And maybe I'll talk about that later. But here's some films that I kind of really, really like. So the first one is a slash. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid / The Sting. His collaborations with Paul Newman and the director George Roy Hill. I guess the story goes, originally, Paul Newman was connected to Butch and Sundance. I think George Roy Hill was too as director. And I don't know if Newman was going to play Sundance or not, because there was talk that Steve McQueen could be in it with Newman. But that didn't work out. And again, I totally get it. Like Paul Newman and Steve McQueen as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid would have been fantastic. But that didn't quite happen. So Paul Newman sat down and talked to Robert Redford. And at the time, he liked Redford. And then George Roy Hill, he liked Redford. And they convinced the studios, like, hey, man, this is our guy. And I think that's when Redford became Sundance over Newman. And it became a huge hit. And to be honest, that changed Redford's life. Because before then, like, he had films. He was making films. He had a Twilight Zone episode. That's a classic. And he was making films, but he wasn't that dude yet. He was still learning to be that guy. That film happened, everything blew up, and that's where Sundance comes from. Butch and Sundance Institute, Sundance Film Festival. So, and then later on, when we get to The Sting, George Hill, once again, he was the director. But again, it was Robert Redford and George Hill. The studio, I don't think, wanted Newman, because Newman was making films. He made film like Slapshot. But he wasn't that top box office guy like he was back in the 60s. But they said, no, Robert's like, this is my dude. Like, no, we're going to do this. And they made The Sting as a classic. It's rare that you can take two actors in two different films and they're both classics. It's kind of like Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. Like, Wedding Crashers is a classic, but the stuff they did after that just didn't work. And Newman and Redford did that. So there's that. The Candidate, probably my second favorite Redford film. If you're learning about politics, if you're learning how to run a campaign, this film was made in the early 70s. The basis of running a campaign, dealing with your campaign manager, how do you deal with the established candidate, all that stuff. Are you the same person you were in the beginning than you were at election night? Like all these things are still the same. So if you're a person who enjoys politics or just want to run for office and have questions about it, go watch The Candidate. It pops up once in a while on Turn to Classic Movies. Great movie poster. Peter Boyle's in it. But it has my favorite line. One of my favorite lines ever in cinema is the question, what do we do now? Now that's all I'll say. Those simple lines just says a lot. So there's The Candidate. 3 Days of the Condor. If you're a fan of Enemy of the State with Will Smith, The Manchurian Candidate with Denzel Washington, or the original with Frank Sinatra. If you're a fan of The X-Files and that whole trust no one thing, if you like conspiracy theories when it comes to politics and the government, this film is fantastic. First of all, Newman's outfits in that film. There are two distinct films where Newman just look fantastic clothing-wise. Gatsby and 3 Days of Condor. The outfits that he wore in that, oh my God, you can still wear that in 2025. Whoever fitted him, man, they did a great job. So he played, in the beginning of the film, he's riding a bike, but he's a CIA analyst. He's riding his bike to work. And everything is cool. And then it's not. Then it's not. It is so good. I don't think 3 Days of Condor gets us enough credit as it does when it comes to like spy thriller, government stuff, conspiracies. Oh, it's so good. Fantastic. Like I said, if you love Enemy in the State, you'll totally get 3 Days of a Condor. The Way We Were, the Barbra Streisand film. And she wanted Redford for that role. It just asked the question. Like, you could be with the love of your life. Like, no matter what age you are, This person makes you skip a beat every time you see them. But is this person perfect for you? Are you perfect for each other? If you have differences, can you get past your differences? And we see the whole arc of their relationship. You see it when they first get together. You see just how their relationship unfolds. It's really good. I kind of put up there 500 Days of Summer. Yeah, I guess I got 500 Days of Summer as my number 2 favorite. So I guess if I rank my top favorite romantic films, Love Jones with Nia Long and Lawrence Tate, 500 Days of Summer, and probably The Way We Were. It has everything. It has love. It has toxicity. It's sexy. There's a questionable scene with the love scene that some women criticize. I see it a different way, but that's always been the debate with that scene. And I'm sure when people left the theater, they was questioning their own relationships. You know, that whole thing about opposites attract, sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not saying, if you've never seen it, I'm not saying if they worked or didn't work. But when their relationship worked, you saw how they looked at each other. You would almost feel like they were a real life couple, but they weren't. Fantastic. The Way We Were is a fantastic, heartbreaking, loving movie. Loving movie. It's probably one of the realest relationship movies you probably ever see. And Barbra Streisand singing is just nobody's better. You can have Taylor Swift. Give me a Barbra Streisand. I'll take that vocal every day. And then we come to like All the President's Men. In this world today, where we have a maniacal president who feel like he's a dictator, and we have media being bought up by billionaires, I think it's an important time to break out All the President's Men. It is with Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein, breaking the Nixon story, their editor, played by Jason Robart, having their support. And that's important too. That's something that Jimmy Kimmel isn't getting from ABC so far, is that we support you. The editor of the Washington Post supported Woodward and Bernstein. I don't know if that would happen today, the way things are now. So if you're into journalism, if you have questions about the government, if you have questions about media, I would say watch All the President's Men. It's a great education. In fact, I think All the President's Men should be shown in schools across the country at this time, so these kids can understand like where we were, where you have to hold politicians accountable, where you have to go deeper to find out the truth about a story. We got to hold our president accountable. We can't allow billionaires to keep on buying up our media, because then they'll shut down stories. This is an era of free media, investigative media, holding people accountable. Something that we're not doing in 2025. So yeah, All the President's Men is probably one of the more, of all the films that came out in the 70s. And The Godfather, people say, what's the best film in the 70s? People say The Godfather. It's like, absolutely. Fantastic film. But one of the most important films of that era is probably All the President's Men. All the President's Men, Network, anything that deals with media and journalism, they're super important. And a lot of it reflects the things that you see in 74, 75, 76, whenever those films came out. You see it today even more so in 2025. So that's a few films I suggest. I mentioned Barefoot in the Park with Jane Fonda. That's a playful, that's early 67 Newman, Redford. I keep on saying Newman. Redford, 67 Redford. Him and the girl next door looking Jane Fonda before Barbarella. And it's actually, it looks like one of those Doris Day, Cary Grant films, but there's a sexy edge to it. They're newlyweds. He's uptight. She's kind of more sexually free. And they're just talking about how they're trying to make their relationship work, because she's trying to bring him out of his shell. It's a fantastic movie, man. And early Jane Fonda is really interesting, because people kind of look at those films like, oh, they're kind of like those Doris Day films. They are, but they have a slight sexual revolution tint to it. Doris Day and Rock Hudson films are great, but playful. The Jane Fonda Girl Next Door films that look like the Doris Day films have that same look, but there's a sexual thing to it. There's a sexual undercurrent to these films. So most definitely, Barefoot in the Park with her and Redford is fantastic. Because after that, he ends up doing Butch and Sundance, and she does Barbarella, and her career's changed forever. So what is your favorite Robert Redford film? And what film did I not mention that you love?